Hey everybody, welcome to Win Today Live. I'm so glad you're tuning in tonight. Just wanted to take some time together to talk about my greatest passion, which is you. Tonight we're talking about your roadmap to wholeness, specifically in the context of relationships. And I really believe, guys, that we're going to have a valuable conversation here tonight. I'm just going to wait just a minute, just while people are signing on and getting engaged in the conversation, but we won't hesitate too long so we can dive right into the content. But thanks again for tuning in. Hey, before we do get started into the content tonight, I do want to let you know that if you're not currently a subscriber of my podcast, Win Today with Christopher Cook, it's available right now on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, and on Google Play, and really every other podcast outlet that's available out there. So I do want to encourage you, a brand new episode hits every single Wednesday. Again, Win Today with Christopher Cook. You can get it on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, and many others. This week, I do want to tease this week's episode because it is so meaningful for me. Ken Coleman, he's the host of Dave Ramsey's EntreLeadership podcast, is joining me. Man, it is going to be such a powerful episode. We're talking about the power of asking questions, quality questions that literally can change the course of your life. So make sure you do tune in. That's this week on Win Today. Ken Coleman from the EntreLeadership podcast is with me. And if you are brand new to the show, make sure you go back a few episodes. Bob Goff was on. Christine Kane was on. And so many others that have really added a lot of value to, I believe, all of us here at Win Today. But guys, let's dive into the content tonight. Tonight we are talking about your roadmap to wholeness in relationships. And guys, what I really wanted to do tonight is talk about what wholeness looks like in the context of professional relationships and social relationships, and perhaps most interesting to you, romantic relationships. So let's dive in. Guys, when we're talking about wholeness, imagine a three-legged stool. And I actually want to show you this for example here. When we're talking about wholeness in relationships, imagine a three-legged stool. So here, if you're going to sit upon the stool called wholeness, you need balance. And the balance of that relationship, the balance of that wholeness comes into play with what I believe are three things: connection, passion. Now, professionally, you might say, Chris, where does passion come in professionally? Well, I actually believe the better word in a professional context is intentionality, being present, showing up. So the second leg is passion and intentionality. The third leg, I believe, of a whole relationship is grace. We're people. We all make mistakes. And so we all need grace. So let's dive in and let's start talking about this. So number one, the first leg of a whole relationship, guys, is the priority for connection. Here, it's one thing to communicate. It's another thing to connect. In fact, Dr. John Maxwell, a leadership expert, says that. He says everyone communicates, but few connect. See, in every relationship, guys, I want to tell you this. This is the truth. In every relationship, you're either moving towards connection or disconnection. I want to say that again. In every relationship, you're either moving towards connection or disconnection. Let's look at the second leg. The second leg, folks, is passion or intentionality. And as I said, in a professional context, I think the word intentionality is probably a little more appropriate. But it translates to just being proactive and showing up to be a contributor on your job. One of my best friends, George, always says that. He says, how are we being a contributor in our lives? So are you committed to being present to show up? Are you being committed to be present to show up in the relationship? See, it's one thing to pursue the relationship out of obligation. It's like a lot of people in America today. We show up to work because we have to. But it's a whole nother thing to show up and be present out of desire. I'm going to say that again. It's one thing to show up out of obligation. It's a whole nother thing to show up out of desire. And here's the third leg, guys, which, man, I don't know who doesn't need this third leg in their life, and it's grace. So what does grace look like in the context of relationship? I think one of my favorite words epitomizes grace best, and it's vulnerability. Listen, guys, people are going to make mistakes and hurt you, and you're going to do the same to them. I had an interaction last week and went, oh man, I was just too short with my words, and the person receiving them didn't know my intention, and they were hurt. So guess what? I had to clean up my mess, and we're all good now. But See, guys, the question is whether or not you have developed the character then to stay engaged in the relationship even when you've been hurt. I'm going to say that again. I love to teach, so I like to repeat things. Whether or not you have grace in a relationship is contingent upon asking yourself whether or not you have the developed character within you to stay engaged and pursue connection even when you've been hurt. See, a lot of times when we've been hurt, it's easy just to take our ball and go home and say, I'm out, I'm done. That's not a relationship. Relationship involves hurt. That's why we need grace. And I want to put this caveat on here too, guys. We're not talking about dysfunction. We're not talking about abuse and infidelity. Those things are devastating. We're talking about two imperfect people working out connection in the context of a relationship. So a lot of times, guys, you're just going to need to learn how to laugh and how to smile and just be committed to the process. So again, let's review before we move on. Wholeness in a relationship, be it romantic, social, or even professional, is contingent, I believe, upon these three legs: connection, passion, which is intentionality, and grace. Connection, passion, and grace. So right now, I want to do an exercise with you. I want you to take stock in your own relationships, whether social or professional or even romantic right now. So let's do this exercise together. I've got a piece of paper right here. I want you to grab your phone, grab a piece of paper. In fact, I'm going to give you guys about 20 seconds to get your phones out. Get a piece of paper, get a pen. Let's do this live together. Let's go ahead and grab those right now. And again, while you're doing that, I'm just going to say this. Without the three legs, we're going to be unstable. I think instability in relationships causes us to walk around on eggshells. It creates a culture of fear and propagates shame, and that is no way to have a thriving relationship, whether socially, professionally, or even romantically. Remember what I said a few moments ago. In every single relationship, we are either moving towards connection or we're moving towards disconnection. One of the easiest ways to disconnect in a relationship is to have a stool, so to speak, lacking one of these three legs. So I hope you've got your piece of paper by now. I hope you've got your phone ready to go. So what I want you to do is make 3 columns on that piece of paper. Go ahead right now and make 3 columns, and we're going to call each one of these columns connection. The second column we're going to call passion. And the third we're going to call grace. Draw a line down. So you got this going down right now. You've got grace, you've got passion, you've got connection. Then what I want you to do on the left side is begin to put in relationships. Maybe put your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your spouse, your boss, your coworker. How many know that sometimes we run into coworkers that are just hard to deal with? But I bet on the other side of the fence, maybe sometimes we're hard to deal with. So let's just be self-aware. Let's take a moment to self-assess. And then ask yourself, put a check next to each one of those relationships. Let's break this apart and talk about your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Is connection in the relationship? Is passion in the relationship? Is grace in the relationship? Be honest with yourself. See, it's your ability to be self-aware and honest that's going to bring the breakthrough. See, if you want to hit the target of a successful relationship, you first have to be able to see the target. I'll say it again. If you want to hit any target in life, you have to first see the target. So how are we seeing the target? Well, we're articulating it right now by saying, hey, relationship A has connection, has passion, but does not have grace. In fact, let's break that open and talk about that. So if you've taken a minute to write down some relationships right now, let's look at the check boxes you've put next to connection and passion and grace. What happens when you have connection and passion but no grace? I want to propose to you right now that what you have in your relationship is a strong-handed relationship. See, cuts go deeper. The wounds stay longer. Why? Because that person has greater access to damage you, to hurt you, to cause wounds. Again, we're talking connection, we're talking passion, but no grace. Isn't it true that the person that has the greatest access to your heart can also wound you the deepest? Hello? Are you guys seeing me? Isn't it true? I'm thinking about relationships in my own life. Man, if this person in my life said this thing or this thing or this thing, that thing would sting. But here's the thing. Who cares if a person off the street cusses you out or says something insulting to you? They don't have access to your heart. So it's not a big deal. Again, not compassion. Connection plus passion with minus grace is going to be a heavy-handed, strong-handed, wounded, legalistic type relationship. Let's look at the next equation here, guys. And this is passion plus grace minus connection, though. I want to say that again. Passion plus grace minus connection is going to be, I believe, a superficial relationship. Think about it this way. You have passion for a person. You have grace for a person. But you have no connection yet. You're just communicating. It's going to be superficial. It's kind of like a first date, actually. And this isn't all bad. But as you're developing a relationship, you will run into issues. You know, it's easy. I wrote down here on my notes, it's easy to have grace on a first date. You're on a first date. We've all been there. And you start noticing the quirks about a person. It's cute, right? You can pass it off because you're not waking up to them every day. You're not having to deal with the dirty laundry. You're not seeing them after they've had the stomach flu. Hello. Like, we're talking for real, right? So again, passion plus grace minus connection is going to be a superficial relationship. Again, everyone communicates, few connect. So let's push through the difficulties and the nuances of our own personality to pursue connection. I love to teach. I said that a moment ago, so I'll say it again. In every relationship of our life, we're either moving towards connection or moving towards disconnection. That applies to every single relationship in your life. Here's the third equation, guys. Connection plus grace minus passion. Connection plus grace minus passion. I actually want you to think about that for a minute. I don't want to give you the answer real quick. Think about a relationship in your life based upon even maybe what you wrote on your piece of paper here. A relationship that has connection, that has grace, but no passion. I want to propose that it's a lifeless, stale, on-paper relationship. My parents are professional counselors. You know, my mom went home to be with the Lord 6 years ago, but my dad is a really highly respected professional counselor here in the Detroit area. And he said, Chris, I see so many relationships come into the office. They are on-paper relationships. They do have connection. They've got purpose to the relationship. They even have grace for one another, but they have no passion for one another. That relationship, guys, is stale. It's lifeless. It's obligatory. You know, it's the difference. Let's apply this to a professional setting. It was coaching a client in the last couple of weeks. I was up at their office talking to their vice presidents, their directors, if you will. I was talking about even this as it relates to the professional side of things. So it is the difference between being a contributor on the job and just a job doer, an order taker, if you will. That's no way to live. Again, connection plus grace minus passion is a lifeless, stale, on-paper relationship. I believe with passion, you then show up to work every day, and all of a sudden you're a contributor. You're not just punching the clock, showing up to do a job. You are there with passion. You're there to make a difference. You understand the vision. You've assimilated the vision into your life, and you're making a difference in the lives of everyone you meet. I don't know about you, but I don't want to work a job where I'm just showing up and, again, it's just a job. How you guys doing? You doing all right? Wave at me. Say hi, something. We doing good? All right, well, let's move on here. The second aspect of what I want to talk to you about, guys, tonight is two aspects of a relationship. I'm going to leave that stool up just so you can see it. Two aspects of a relationship. One is called enmeshment. One is called disengagement. And see, again, we're talking tonight, guys, about we're talking about wholeness in relationships. Where if you have enmeshment or disengagement in the relationship, you will not have wholeness. So what does that mean? Chris, what does that mean? Let's break that apart right now. Enmeshment in a relationship is essentially an unhealthy dynamic where one person requires constant affirmation and value and validation and identity from another person. They require it in order to feel whole. That's where shame comes into play. Shame and codependency come into play in those type of relationships. Again, that is an enmeshed relationship. On the other side of it, we have disengaged relationships. A disengaged relationship functions with pure independence. It's isolation. It's self-reliance. That's no way to live either, because you know what? You have no vulnerability. Let's apply that let's go back to this stool analogy. Where you have disengagement, I want to propose that you don't have passion or connection in the relationship. So enmeshment in relationship is a very highly dysfunctional, dependent relationship. A disengaged dynamic in a relationship is an independent aspect of a relationship. But wholeness in the relationship, guys, occurs when interdependence is present, and we need to have interdependence. See, it's where two powerful people who are engaged in the relationship, who know who they are, who are operating from a healthy sense of identity, are committed not only to their own growth, but to the others. Why would you need to be committed to your own growth in the sake of a relationship? I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but let's put it on the table. Let's talk about it. You know, when you get on an airplane and they say, in the event of an emergency, the mask will drop, who did they tell you to put the mask on first? Yourself, right? Why? Because you can only give what you have to give. I'll say it again. You can only give what you have. Meaning, if you're not filled up with identity and security and self-love and a healthy amount of self-worth, how can you bring value and affirmation in a healthy way to another person? I want to propose that if you don't, it's going to look more like codependence and enabling, and that is no way to live either, guys. Again, wholeness in a relationship occurs when interdependence is present, where two powerful people are committed to not only each other's growth, but to their own. Jesus said it best this way: love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor, what? As yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself in the same degree that you love yourself. You can't properly love people unless you have a value for yourself, for your purpose, for your potential, for the God-breathed significance upon your life, guys. Well, I want to step into, as we're just kind of winding down this conversation, I want to step into a cool illustration that I found when I was kind of preparing this lesson, if you will. And I've got to give credit where credit's due. The man's name is John Crosby. It's from his work, Illusion and Disillusionment. And it was kind of brought together by doctors Les and Leslie Parrott from their very popular book, Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. So what I'm about to teach is probably most applicable to a romantic relationship, but certainly can be applied to a social relationship as well. And so what he does is he uses three letters, and we're going to talk about that right now. I'm going to get a fresh sheet of paper so you can see how that works out. And it plays into what I just said about a dependent relationship. That's where enmeshment comes into play. An independent relationship, that's a disengaged relationship. And then, of course, where wholeness takes place, and that's an interdependent relationship. Again, where we're not only committed to each other's growth, but to our own. So the first letter that Crosby uses here, and I'll show you on the piece of paper right now, is the letter A. You're saying, Chris, what are we doing here? Well, here it is. This is called an A-frame relationship. This is a highly dependent relationship in which the couple's identity, again, we're talking about probably romantic relationships, most in this context here, where the couple has identity in and of themselves, but not within themselves as individuals. So they lean on each other so much so that if one person lets go, guess what happens? The other person falls apart. That's why it's called an A-frame relationship. So look at it this way. You have two people leaning against one another. But again, what happens if one person lets go and steps back? The other person falls flat on his or her own face. That's an A-frame relationship. And I'll say that a lot of shame-based, codependent relationships are what Crosby would probably identify as an A-frame relationship. Again, the people in the relationship don't have a healthy sense of self-worth in and of themselves. And so there's codependency. There's enabling. They have to function so much so within each other that they don't know who they are, opposite and apart from one another. The second one, guys, here is called an H-frame relationship. Again, we talked about independence and used the word disengagement. Look at this one. This is really interesting. So in an H-frame relationship, guess what? There's independence. Not dependence, but independence. So there's no couple identity either. So they stand alone with little emotional connection. If one person lets go, guess what? The other person barely notices. Let's say this person right here walks away. This person is still going to stand, and they're not even going to feel the effects of it. Again, remember we talked about the stool earlier. You may have connection. You may have grace, but you have no passion. I would propose that that's where those H-frame relationships come into play. You have independence, but no passion for one another, no true connection. If one person says, I'm done, whatever, they walk out, you go on with your merry day. That's no way to live either. The third one here, guys, is what we really want to focus on. This is what Crosby calls an M-frame relationship. Really beautiful here. Here's how it works. This is an interdependent relationship. So each person has high self-esteem and is really committed to the growth of the other partner. And mutual influence and emotional support is available. Guys, it looks like we just lost the broadcast, but we are back now. Sorry, let's pick up where we left off. We're talking about M-frame relationships, where you have mutuality in the relationship. Sorry, I'm just waiting. This internet connection is kind of funny. I apologize, guys. Okay, we're back. Sorry, let's take off with talking about the M-frame relationships. They rest upon interdependence. So each person has a high value for their self-worth, for what they're bringing to the table. And if one person leaves or if one person lets go, yeah, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it big time. But because of the interdependence and because one person is bringing the strength of their identity to the relationship and the other is doing the same, the other person is going to be able to still live. So again, an A-frame relationship is a very dependent, codependent relationship, if you will. The H-frame relationship is purely independent, where a person walks away and the other doesn't even feel it. They're living in silos. But the interdependent relationship, the relationship based upon wholeness, is again where there is mutuality in the relationship. There is vested interest in one another. And yeah, if the relationship breaks apart, it is going to sting. But because of the self-worth and self-value you have, you're going to be able to thrive. So, wow, we've said a lot, but what I want to do is just encourage you guys as we're finishing up here tonight. What do we walk away from this conversation doing? How do we walk away? Well, the first step is to self-assess and to become self-aware and to say, how am I doing in my relationships? You know, I'm a contributor to a relationship, so how am I doing in my ability to be passionate in the relationship? How am I doing in my ability to be a person who values connection, and how am I doing in my ability to offer grace in the relationship? Self-awareness, I believe, guys, is one of the most valuable skills we will ever demonstrate and apply in any relationship. And even within ourselves, we don't know what we don't know, and we all have blind spots. So it's our ability to self-assess and be self-aware. This lands the plane to something I am so passionate about, guys, and that is shame. See, shame infiltrates relationships, I think, more than we realize. Shame says, uniquely, you are flawed in and of yourself. So what happens in relationships is, where shame is present, is we tend to self-protect. We can't let bad people in because of the past hurt. But what happens is we don't let good people in either. That's no way to live. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we self-promote. Because we don't have a healthy sense of self-worth, we have to let everyone know what we've done based upon our performance in order to feel good inherently about ourselves. But hey guys, there is so much more to unpack about this subject, talking about pursuing wholeness in relationships, your roadmap to wholeness in relationships, such a big deal. But guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. I do want to answer a couple questions. I had one question pop in here that asked, Chris, what's your own shame journey? Oh my gosh. Well, might as well just be candid talking about shame. Shame manifests for me, guys, in self-protection. My biggest vice in life, and you're going to actually hear me talk about it on Win Today this week, is a huge fear of rejection. When I was a little boy, I had some instances happen in which I felt so devalued at the core of my person. And so because of my skills and my talents, what I decided to do is live my life through my performance. If I performed well, I was valued. If I didn't perform well, guess what? I had no inherent worth or value. And what it did is kept me stuck on this cycle of performance and acceptance and performance and acceptance. If I did good, I was good. If I did poorly, I was bad. I was rejected. You know, guilt says you made a mistake. We all make mistakes in life, guys. But shame, and this is how shame affected me so personally, shame said, no, Chris, you are a mistake. And what shame is going to do, even applying it to what we talked about tonight about wholeness and relationships and that powerful three-legged stool, is that shame is going to cut one or more of those legs off the stool. You're going to be left with instability. So my own journey of shame really forced me to come to terms with looking at myself in the mirror every day and saying, Chris, you're acting like a victim today. Chris, you're such an enabler in that relationship. Now, I didn't just stop there. What I did is I pursued help and healing through counseling. I meet with a mentor of mine every single week, and we talk about these things because I want to become whole. You know, I'll even just say it this way, guys. This whole journey of wholeness, putting together my own roadmap to wholeness, is of primary importance to me. We're in this journey together. I am definitely not the expert in this. I want to be your guide. I want to be your help to say, hey, come along with this, in this journey with me. Let's pursue this thing together. But hey, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me here on your roadmap to wholeness, relationships. Please don't forget, connect with me at wintoday.tv for blogs and archive podcasts. Every one of them are aimed at helping you develop your custom roadmap to wholeness. There's no formula about this. There are similar road markers, but guys, there is no formula to this thing called wholeness. Please do subscribe to the Win Today with Christopher Cook podcast on iTunes, on Google Play. If you're an Android user, we'll pray for you. Kidding, I know, haha. But 95% of my users are iPhone users, so I had to say it. But anyway, look me up, Win Today with Christopher Cook on iTunes. I really believe it'll add a lot of value to you. Again, the show is on Google Play as well. Please share this, talk about this, subscribe to the show. I'd really appreciate you coming along this journey as we endeavor to help as many people as possible become whole from the inside out. So thanks for watching tonight. I hope this was a value add to you. Again, don't miss this week's show, Win Today with Christopher Cook, available right now on iTunes. Ken Coleman from the Entre Leadership Podcast. It's a Dave Ramsey brand is with me. We're talking all about the power of asking quality questions that literally can change your life. So, guys, I hope you have a great night. The Golden State Warriors are on here in 2 hours. I got to make some dinner. I'm out. Have a great night. We'll talk to you guys again really soon. See you guys. Bye-bye.